Being, the nature or essence of life. Change, an act or process through which life becomes different. Being change. Existence is being change, or being a gift. Your feet, they've grown. History has become our story. Bloodlines are healing. Skin ages. Oppression has been traumatic. Change, as I see it, is the name of the game. And being change, that is the rule of the game. So be change. Learn to feel loved and empowered. Account for your being. Make an informed vote. Face your fears. They live in the unknown. Care and surrender. Be the paradox. Be a mirror. Be the magic. Be all that is. Be endless change. Dear society, welcome to episode 8 of Meeting Myself. If any part of your being had forgotten, I hope my words can remind you of the gift of being, wrapped up in and as you, all present for you to be.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. If you're new, please look around your screen. I'm pretty sure there's a red subscribe button somewhere there. Tap on it, join us, and let's meet myself. And what I wanted to do with this meeting is really meet Silwani as society, meet myself as society. I feel like I don't feel like, I know I have so many qualms and discomforts with society in general, and I feel like when we do that, when we see issues with society and in society, we tend to exclude ourselves from that problem or from society as a whole. And I remember having a conversation with a guy years ago, and I wasn't even really deeply in understanding the systems of the world at the time. I just knew that I was quite frustrated with our government. And this guy is from Malawi and I'm in South Africa, so I need you to think about the different kinds of governments. And I complained to him about the government, and he told me that I am the government. And for me, that felt silencing. It felt silencing for real. But I look back to it and to that encounter and him saying that, and to the silence that I felt. And I think that response allowed me to see my power, where that I did have power to start with, and secondly, that it was within me. And I've had many encounters with other people and just with learning about society in general that have further encouraged me to see society as a reflection of myself and myself as a reflection of society, to see myself as a part of society. And seeing myself as a part of society meant also seeing myself as part of the problem, which I think generally as human beings, our mind avoids letting us sit in being the problem. We just don't. We don't like to see that we are a part of the problem. But I think there's so much power that comes with awareness. This awareness brings you knowing of your power. And I guess I'm at that place now. I'm at a place where, yeah, society sucks And I guess that means I suck too, to some extent. And until society doesn't suck, I'll still suck. And with that awareness of and acceptance of the fact that society sucks, and because I'm a part of society, I probably suck too, I can actually act positively. I can actually act towards lessening the suckiness of society. Whereas if I don't see myself as part of society, there's nothing to be worked on within me. And if there's nothing to be worked on within me, nothing outside of me will ever change. And like, if you're not seeing the power that's within you, then you're just a victim. You perceive yourself as such, a victim of the circumstance. So when I saw society as external to me, for instance, I saw the government as somewhat external to me, I was pointing fingers at society. And with the knowing that I am society, sure, there's still quite a huge number of finger pointing, but there has been a spark of wanting to act in a way that is contrary to the things that I don't like about society, you know? And thereby, by acting that way, I create the society that I actually want to be in, that I actually want to be, that I actually want to be a reflection of, that I actually want to reflect me. And I guess that's like the gist of this conversation. I wanted to go into some definitions and look into some definitions, because I feel like we say a lot of words in general as people. I say a lot of words, and we get lost between what we intend and what we mean when we say them and what we have been taught they mean. I am learning to step into my power in terms of defining words so that I can define my experience of the word. And I guess that's why I also just feel that we should get into the definitions that are widely accepted of these terms, so we can just sit with them and really see if they suit firstly our understanding, if we comprehend these definitions, because I feel like comprehending a definition or comprehending a meaning of the word is not just knowing what Google says it defines. It's knowing the reality of that word. When that word is alive, what does it look like? I feel like a lot of people struggle with this. I feel this way, and I feel like it's, for me, it feels particularly like a superpower. Like, I can't really quite explain how I do it, but I feel that society in general, a lot of people struggle with owning words. I think it has to do with letting the power live in the word instead of inside of you, the person who utters the words and who uses the words to do whatever you want to do. I think it has to do with that. But I really don't know how to put across how my brain does it. But I'm hoping as these meetings go, as you see me look into words and really make words mean realities with my own personal understanding, you can see how I do it and you can learn. I really hope so. So let's go into definitions. The first definition we're looking into is socialization. Socialization, the process of learning to behave in a way that is acceptable to society. I learned to be a people pleaser. My socialization taught me that. Was that good for me? No. Quite literally bad for my health. So, socialization, the process of learning to behave in a way that is acceptable to society. We can have we as a society can be more accepting of people and people who they genuinely are and who they genuinely and authentically express themselves as. We can be so much more accepting. And the wild thing for me is the tolerance and the acceptance levels of rubbish in this world, of oppression. Like, that bothers me. It's like we don't know, like, it's like we're struggling to expand in terms of accepting love, accepting authenticity, but we are easily accepting harm, easily accepting unconsciousness. I guess my brain is making me understand why that's easy. It's because we know it. It's hard to accept love in our current society, because if you read our history, you will see that love has not been the center of the society. If you look at what runs this society, money and resources instead of life, you see that we accept all that is external to us and reject all that is internal to us. I don't know what the fuck that, okay, I do know what that has to do with, but I think that it's time for us to be aware of what we are accepting as a society. What kind of behaviors are we accepting and what kind of behaviors are we rejecting? And I'll give you an example. Personally, as a child, I used to tell my family that I was a boy. I didn't like wearing like dresses and girl clothes, but they didn't accept it. They didn't accept it. Instead, they imposed on me that I was a girl and that I had to wear a certain way. I remember like literally throwing myself on the floor, having a temper tantrum, my mom clothing me in a dress that she had gotten made for me. Imagine, you're a child, they got you a dress made, and I hated it, to show that my authentic expression was just not aligning with that. But I existed in a society that was not gonna accept that behavior, like on a general scale. With that particular experience, my dad literally came into my room and told my mom to stop it, and that I could wear whatever the fuck I wanted, because I was crying. Like I actually remember feeling horrible in it. The dynamic of like, just there's air coming in, because you know dresses are open. It was horrible. And I can only imagine the number of people in the world who are born not excited to do that and to express themselves that way, and it is imposed on them to express themselves that way. That is socialization. That is how we are creating people. That's literally socialization in real life when it's out here. Not just the word. The word, I've explained what it means, but I've explained further the reality of how it shows. So I was socialized to be a woman, whatever that means. To a certain extent, the experience of being socialized to be a woman is dehumanizing in this society. I do feel that we can define womanhood in a way that attaining it does not feel dehumanizing to women who are attaining it, I guess, if it's something to be attained. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next word. The next word is sociology. Sociology, this is my special interest. I actually was saying this morning, like as a child I wanted to be a social worker. As a child, I've always, like, I saw real issues in this society from long ago, and my dream, and when people would ask me what I wanted to be, I'd say I wanted to be a social worker.
because I really felt that the society needed a lot of awareness and a lot of changes. I was aware of society from as early as the first thing I wanted to be when I grew up. Anyway, so sociology is like a special interest of mine. I remember even primary school when I started doing social sciences, that was my best subject. I respected my teacher so much he taught me so much. I feel like the experience of doing social work, I was born with it. I was doing it from the day I was born. Like, I remember my friend in primary school being bullied, né? And me screaming at the bullies. Like, I didn't scream at them, I made fun of them and pulled my friend and we ran away. The police found me and they beat me in primary school. But like, I've just always been that person who wants to fix society, who wants to see society be better. So sociology is a deep interest of mine. Literally for this video, I read through a textbook. Literally trying to understand like our current social structure, societal structure and societal order, and what its core is, and to learn that this like we are running real lives from a perspective of limited resources. That shit makes me mad. That makes me mad, because which resources are limited? Am I sitting in the same nature that we all know? I hope I am, because that is a lie. I feel like to teach people that resources of nature are scarce. You know that they teach us that in school. Like, it's like every person who's in South Africa right now has been taught that resources are scarce and limited. And it's like that, those are theories that you teach in a world where you want oppression to live, in a world where you want separation to live, in a world where you want hate and fear to live. If you want peace and love, you will see the abundance that is in this very life that we are in. It's immense. It's beyond our comprehension. And I guess no wonder we believe it's limited. No wonder. No wonder. This level of abundance. It's literally like you can't comprehend it. So we took our limitation in terms of comprehending abundance, and comprehending and perceiving nature and abundance, we took our limitation and we imposed it on nature, and we taught ourselves and each other that the problem was in nature. The problem was in the resources. They just weren't enough. For me, that stuff's confusing and wild. So anyway, the term sociology, the study of social life, social change, and social causes and consequences of human behavior. It's the study. So if you care about society, if you see yourself as society, studying yourself as society, studying society at large is sociology. You're studying society. You're studying it from the aspect of what social life is like, what social change is. I can tell you the social change that has gone on in the past, like till now, just generally. Like, I think about women in society, how far we've come in terms of, you know, history is told from male's perspective.
women have worked so hard to insert our story into the story of humanity. So hard. It's actually, the world is literally changing. It's literally changing, and I don't know how, I can't tell you how proud I am of women, black women particularly. I was looking at the birth rates in South Africa, and they've been lowering for years. Like, they just keep declining, and I'm just like, you guys are quite aware of society and the ills of it, and what needs to be done for it to be better. Because you can't expect, like, for me, it doesn't make sense in a world that centers fear and oppression for us to carry on bringing life, human lives, to believe in that fear and oppression. We need to first get the world, like, not necessarily pause baby making, but really we need to exercise consciousness and awareness as a society at large. And I think we're making the right moves towards, in the right direction. Personally, that's what I think. It's not even what I believe. I know this, I can see it. It's not a belief. It's a knowing. Anyways, that's sociology. I have been in sociology from as early as I could comprehend, because I have, like, society at large has been an interest for me from as young as I can remember. And I wonder, like, sometimes I wonder if that has to do with how misunderstood I felt in this world from that long ago, or if it has to do with just my observing the world and how it was working for people in general. But, like, I think a big part of, like, I think it definitely has to do with me and how I felt, like, chronically misunderstood, which is probably because I have a special brain and no one knew anything about different kinds of brains in my society. So I know now, and with my knowing, we're creating better realities, better socializations for my nieces, my nephews, children around me, even adults around me. Because knowing, that's it. The next word I wanted to get into is culture. Culture, the values, beliefs, systems of language, communication, and practices that people share in common and that can be used to define them as a collective. Culture, the values, beliefs, systems of language, communication, and practices that people share in common and that can be used to define them as a collective. Yeah, we have cultures, we create culture. Culture is ever changing, it's constantly being created. It's values and beliefs and systems. We've killed so many values and so many beliefs and systems in the past and birthed new ones. I can see patriarchy is dying, the belief that men are superior to women. That belief system is dying. But, like, I'm hoping to inspire people also personally to tap into the knowing of abundance. Scarce resources is a system, it's a belief system, it's a belief that you hold to keep capitalism as a system alive. But capitalism as a system is dying. The same way, like, just because the belief it's built under is being debunked. So that's that on that. So a culture of, I guess for me, the culture of submitting to men, keeping quiet when males talk, it died with me. Especially in my family. Like, I'm a last born, and there are belief systems in the world that, like, younger people should respect older people, which is fine. I agree with that. I believe I believe in respecting people in general. I don't believe in respecting people on the grounds of age. But I was raised in a culture where respect came on the grounds of age. That belief is dying for me. So I'm going to be creating a new culture. I'm trying to make these terms alive by bringing up examples of how they live in my life. Yeah, and I guess like on the topic of culture, I guess I want to say that it's everywhere. You like going to church every Sunday, going to work Monday to Friday, like that's a culture. And I think we as society are at a place where we can look into when the cultures we participate in were curated and what the intention was. I think we're at a place where we can do that, because I feel like participating in a culture that you don't know, you don't understand, you just know how to participate in it, is being in a cult. Literally, I saw a girl on TikTok who said, what if cult is short for culture? And for me, I don't have to think about that twice. It is like a cult is where people accept a culture, like they accept a way of being and beliefs. And literally religion is cult. Like these Abrahamic religions are cults. If you look at the definition of these words, you see that the reality of a cult is a church. Why? Because there's a culture there. There's accepted beliefs, values, and systems. So it's just like, for purposes of being in a cult, which most of us are, know the culture you're practicing. Know it. Know what it's doing for you and why you're doing it. Maybe further inquire where it came from, this practice, what it was about, you know? I was actually talking to my cousin today about how our family sees, when we see bees, we see it as a sign that our ancestors are around us. And we were talking about, I wonder when our ancestors like saw themselves in bees and what it was about. But we can't ask anyone. Our parents literally just say that's how they do it, and they can't explain anything to us. They just tell us the reality that it is. It's just zizinyanya zethu niyazelaphi kanjani yayicingwa njani loo nto, akhange, like they never got told or taught those things. And I guess that's also another disadvantage, just like in terms of knowing and being aware of self and where self stands. Sometimes where self stands has been hidden, and finding where self stands is literally like work of memory, and you can't ask no one was alive to see where that part of yourself was born. The part of me that sees my ancestors in Inyos, no one can really give me the theory of that. And that part is me, because those are my ancestors. The people who decided that we see ourselves, those are my ancestors, and I accept that culture. But there's no one around me who knows what was intended with that culture, and all I can rely on is the memory that is in my DNA. With time, things will get clearer, information will come into my life, and I will remember what was created back then by me, parts of me, my ancestors, people who lived here so that I can live here, which is literally what my ancestors are, the people who lived so that I can live. We can move on to the last word, society. A group of people who live in a definable territory and share the same culture. So I need us to think, yeah, that's society. So society, I don't think you guys need me to explain society in terms of, like, okay, here's one thing I just want to say about this definition. It says a group of people. I don't know, I feel like I'm feeling a little bit of a qualm with that, because I see myself, like me as an individual, I'm not a group of people. I see myself as society. I see myself as society as a whole, but I also see myself as a part of society. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I wonder if this definition can be flexible enough to allow for that perspective of my own. Our agenda for today is examples of the culture I was born in, the reality of the culture I was born in. Okay, so I'm definitely going to give examples, but I want to first describe this culture with words. You know, I love words, and how else can I describe things if I don't use words? So I put like a pile of words that just really described the experience of my culture, the one I was born into. And I think to a large extent, or to some extent, this culture is like just quite widely present. Like, my mom and dad were not the only people in the world who, or my family is not the only people in the world who, group of people in the world who practice the culture that I'm speaking of and that I lived in. They took it from somewhere. They took it from other cultures. They took the culture they created for me from other cultures and their cultural experiences, you know, and created a cultural experience for me. And yeah, so let me just tell you the words. So I would describe the culture I was born into as firstly heteronormative. Literally nobody in my house ever talked to me about sexualities outside of heterosexuality. No one even ever talked to me about sexuality, because we assumed heterosexuality and heteronorm. In my culture, it was assumed that heteronormativity is the natural sexuality. Cringe. Cringe. It just shows such a limited understanding of sexuality as a reality. But that's the culture I was born into. I was born into a culture that knew very little about sexuality, that knew only what we have been taught about sexuality, which is heteronormativity, which is rooted in a lot of false knowing, which I don't want to get into. So I was born in a culture of heteronormativity. So if I'm not straight, and I can almost, I know for sure there's people in my family who don't understand sexuality and who wouldn't particularly contribute towards a society that knows about sexuality, you know, and therefore I don't know what to say. Therefore, that was the society, and I feel like I was limited in terms of knowing that I could be in a relation with so many different people. Like, I think back to in my life, and I can picture myself finding women attractive, in a in a romantic sense that is also so innocent, because as a child and as someone who's new on earth, you don't know what to make of the things you feel. And I remember feeling deep attraction for quite a number of girls in my life, my friends, some. And I know that I centered my friendships like so much. Like my relationships with women have always felt more in my life than my relationships with males on a romantic sense, I guess. My romantic life, because of a heteronormative culture and perspective, I have never really known how to integrate it into my life, which is weird. And I know that that reality is because I had been cultured into heteronormativity, and so I haven't gotten to learn the culture of just a wide range of sexuality. I haven't been cultured in that, and I don't, like, no one has, because we live particularly in a heteronormative society. We literally live in a heteronormative society, and by that I mean we live in a society that still centers heteronormative relationship and believes that those sexualities and that sexuality and that way of being in relation romantically is the natural way. That's a lie. You're just believing lies, just FYI. Yeah, that's the first word, the first descriptor of my of my culture, the culture that I was born into. I will not be carrying heteronormativity as a characteristic in me as society. I will never, I don't see heteronormativity as the natural order of life, and I will never expect or impose that way of life on anyone. As a matter of fact, I will always question heteronormative practices because they have never been questioned. They are being shoved down our throat as a natural way of living. So I'm shoving back to say, how is it just the natural way of living? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to be doing with my existence. Another descriptor is that my society was patriarchal. I think I said in my video when I spoke about community how my dad used to insist on being hloho ya lelapa and how two bulls couldn't run a home or whatever. So that whole dynamic of patriarchy, I was born into it. It lives in this world. I don't subscribe to it. I speak over men. I don't know, men are not superior to me in any way. In any way, I don't believe that. Next on our agenda for today is examples of the culture I was born in, the reality of the culture I was born in. Okay, so I'm definitely going to give examples, but I want to first describe this culture with words. You know I love words, and how else can I describe things if I don't use words? So I put a pile of words that just really describe the experience of my culture, the one I was born into. And I think to a large extent, or to some extent, this culture is just quite widely present. My mom and dad were not the only people in the world or my family is not the only people in the world group of people in the world who practice the culture that I'm speaking of and that I lived in. They took it from somewhere. They took it from other cultures. They took the culture they created for me from other cultures and their cultural experiences, and created a cultural experience for me. And yeah, so let me just tell you the words. So I would describe the culture I was born into as firstly heteronormative. Literally nobody in my house ever talked to me about sexualities outside of heterosexuality. No one even ever talked to me about sexuality because we assumed heterosexuality and in my culture it was assumed that heteronormativity is the natural sexuality. Cringe. Cringe. It just shows such a limited understanding of sexuality as a reality. But that's the culture I was born into. I was born into a culture that knew very little about sexuality, that knew only what we have been taught about sexuality, which is heteronormativity, which is rooted in a lot of false knowing, which I don't want to get into. So I was born in a culture of heteronormativity. So if I'm not straight, and I can almost I know for sure there's people in my family who don't understand sexuality and who wouldn't particularly contribute towards a society that knows about sexuality, and therefore I don't know what to say. Therefore, that was the society, and I feel like I was limited in terms of knowing that I could be in relation with so many different people. Like, I think back to in my life, and I can picture myself finding women attractive, in a romantic sense that is also so innocent, because as a child and as someone who's new on earth, you don't know what to make of the things you feel. And I remember feeling deep attraction for quite a number of girls in my life, my friends, some, and I know that I centered my friendships so much. My relationships with women have always felt more in my life than my relationships with males on a romantic sense, I guess. My romantic life, because of a heteronormative culture and perspective, I have never really known how to integrate it into my life, which is weird. And I know that that reality is because I had been cultured into heteronormativity, and so I haven't gotten to learn the culture of just a wide range of sexuality. I haven't been cultured in that, and I don't no one has, because we live particularly in a heteronormative society. We literally live in a heteronormative society, and by that I mean we live in a society that still centers heteronormative relationship and believes that those sexualities and that sexuality and that way of being in relation romantically is the natural way. That's a lie. You're just believing lies, just FYI. That's the first word, the first descriptor of my culture, the culture that I was born into. I will not be carrying heteronormativity as a characteristic in me as society. I will never I don't see heteronormativity as the natural order of life, and I will never expect or impose that way of life on anyone. As a matter of fact, I will always question heteronormative practices because they have never been questioned. They are being shoved down our throat as a natural way of living. So I'm shoving back to say, how is it just the natural way of living? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to be doing with my existence. Another descriptor is that my society was patriarchal. I think I said in my video when I spoke about community how my dad used to insist on being hloho ya lelapa and how two bulls couldn't run a home or whatever. So like that whole dynamic of patriarchy, I was born into it. It lives in this world. I don't subscribe to it. I speak over men. I don't know, men are not superior to me in any way. In any way, I don't believe that, literally in any way. Like, I'm not even playing. I find that men seem to believe they're superior to women in terms of physical strength, but I feel like that's such a stupid and flawed perspective, because it doesn't account for socialization. Do you think if women were taught when they were born, strong, do you think we wouldn't like be that? We wouldn't be physically strong and stuff like that? Yeah, I think we would. And I think we're already physically strong. The fact that I'm the one who can carry on a pregnancy, I'm the one who can bring a human here, is proof to me that I am supreme. I'm joking, not supreme, but I'm not inferior. I don't believe in hierarchy either. So yeah, another culture is religion. The culture I was born into was heavily religious, and I now view the term religious outside of Abrahamic religion. When I say religious now in my life, I mean like consistent and disciplined at something, you know. When I'm religious about my political views. Like I'm religious about them. I keep those views alive for as long as they need to live. But for purposes of the culture I was born into, I mean that the culture that I was born into centered Abrahamic religions to some degree, because honestly there's not even one person who follows their Abrahamic religion to the extent that they are instructed to. Not even one. Like, name one person you watching this. Not even one, if you ask me. Another word, hierarchical. Yeah, I don't want to give examples of hierarchical. You guys know I'm a last born, and I was born into a family where when you are the youngest, they tell you what to do and who to be, because you don't know and they know, and somehow this knowing that they have is age. It's weird. I find it very weird, considering the many big children that exist in this world. Like, people are just big, they just grew, like, in terms of their bodies, but they didn't mature. I think it's immature to enforce hierarchy. I find it very immature. I'm not even gonna lie. For me, enforcing hierarchy is like saying, I don't want us to argue about who is above who. I want you to accept that I'm above you. Personally, when if someone said that to me, AF, because just relax. Why? Just calm down. Personally, I know that I will never resist something that makes sense. So I don't understand why someone has to lead me. I don't understand why someone has to be above me. I don't get it. If it makes sense, I will accept it. It's very simple for me. It's simple and straightforward. If it doesn't make sense, I won't accept it. Why would I accept nonsense? Why? Because you are my leader. Because you are above me. This is why I'm saying cut with that above me shit and below me shit. Also, the idea of just being responsible for people, like in the sense that they have decided you are above them, and you have also hierarchy is really you deciding you're above people and forcing them to believe that with you by telling them they don't have power and lying to them about their power. Hierarchy is literally that. And I think about like being, I don't want to be at the bottom of a hierarchy. I don't want to be above the hierarchy. Like, I think about being above in a hierarchy, and I'm just like, I don't aspire to look down on human beings. Like, it's not something I've ever wanted in my life, and it's wild for me that people want that. I find it wild. I find it very wild. Anyways, another word, I found my society to be quite dissociative. Like, in the sense that, guys, the amount of abuse that happens in our lives and is normalized. Hey bo, hey bo, hey bo. And seeing that I'm also gonna have to be one of the people who are just quiet. Personally, I don't want to normalize harm, shame. I don't even want to lie. I don't want to normalize it. I feel like keeping quiet about harm is contributing to its normalization. And that's the thing. We dissociate from reality. Like, oh my god, the culture I was born into. Like, let me give an example. Like, my parents or my family, actually everyone, like even my sisters, like people would come back from church and complain about church, how church works, the people at church, and then Sunday I'm sorry, that's, for me, is weird. That's like saying, I see the problem, I want to forget the problem and go back to it. That's the kind of culture I was born into, and I can't tell you what the fuck that shit groomed me for. Makes me mad just thinking. And then it's also been binary. Binary means black and white, good, bad. I only understood now in my adult life, maybe like year before last, that things aren't black and white, things aren't binary. Like, right now in my life, I don't think anything is binary. Like, nothing in the world is binary, because everything is alive. When something is alive, when something is living, it continues to be. So it can't just be this or that. That's not possible with a process. It's literally impossible, which also just brings me to just my personal identity. I have never been able to perceive binary, like, and I have insisted, because I was born into I tried so much to perceive things, the world, life, myself, from a binary perspective, and I feel like that perspective alienates me from myself. It has for the longest time, and it will if I carry it on, but I'm not holding on to it anymore. I don't view anything as binary. I'm non-binary. Literally. So yeah, so that's that. I found it also to be quite performative. Yeah, I feel like this is so normalized in our cultures, like performance, from the fact that when you are at work you have to speak a specific kind of lingo that's different from when you're at home. It just gives performance, and then I am bored too. I believe in authenticity so much. I am unable to perform, like, because I feel like performance, like, I'm unable to perform and pose that as my true authentic self. I can't. I don't know. I tried and it was horrible, because I feel like when you're born and you're being told how to be a person, follow rules. Also, me, I have my special brain. I found myself performing. And then I also found it to be very role centered, like yeah, very role centered and not human centered. Like when people perceive me, they attach to me the vessel that I'm in, this body. They attach roles to me that have to do with the body that I'm in and I was born in. And now I'm expected to center those things that they've attached. And I think that's why I've always like struggled with gender, because the world perceives me as a woman, a girl in my child ages, and attaches to me, my personhood, what the world thinks a girl and a woman should be like and act like. And it attaches that to everyone who's a woman and a girl. And how we go about in society, basically we have to center those things that are attached to that identity of womanhood and girlhood, that role. Because I think also like gender was created to attribute roles. So gender as a construct was here to outline roles. And I think the fact that like my role was somewhat attached with the fact that I was born with a vagina, it used to make me angry. It still does to some extent. There are so many other words that just describe the culture that I was born into, and I don't want to go into them. I just want to list them now going forward, and then we can move on to the next thing in terms of agenda. Yeah, so I found it to be performative, role-centered, white supremacist, unaware, to be in a perpetual cycle of oppression. I found it to be quite traumatizing, to be quite dehumanizing, self-sacrificial, shameful, judgmental, fearful, fear-centered. I was born in a culture that centered victimhood and demonized liberation, or not even demonizing, I felt guilty. You feel guilty from a certain perspective. You feel guilty that you don't see yourself as a victim. Yeah, that's the culture I grew up in, and further gaslight me into feeling like my reality wasn't victimizing me, actually just suppressing feeling victimized, because feeling guilty for something you didn't do wrong is being victimized as a child. And I couldn't even feel those feelings as valid. I felt guilty for feeling I felt guilty for having parents. I want to just cry thinking about this. Anyway, that's just the gist of the culture in my society that I blame white supremacy for. Is why I felt the importance to speak to society. Because of my socialization, to be quite honest, how society socialized me did to some extent still does to some extent feel dehumanizing. So the order of our society and the structure and how we socialize each other and ourselves centers hierarchy, it centers control, it centers fear, it centers imposition, a lot about the human experience, which is innate to each one of us, is dictated to us. A lot about something that a lot about an experience that you literally don't need anyone to teach you how to do the experience that we are all in here. But from the moment you are born, society imposes on you a way of being through the process of socialization, a structure and a system that can be altered and ordered in a way that does humanize people and actually centers states of being that people individually prefer. But if you know the truth of nature, you know that each and every single human being on earth seeks one thing: belonging. And for that, things like love need to be present. Things like internal knowing need to be present. And in a society that imposes the states of being onto people, the socialization that humanizes people, a social structure that humanizes people, is impossible. It's not present. And I see this in how people speak of the system of capitalism. People can't perceive a system running their society that doesn't oppress them, because they have accepted the reality of a system that does oppress them. And because it was imposed on them from the day they are born, and they can't perceive differently. And I guess like the reason I felt the need to speak to society is so that I can say that so much more is possible so much more than what we have experienced is possible. So much more. We can live in a society, create a society and order a society that literally humanizes each and every single human being that is born into it. We literally have the power to do that. The power is in the now. It is in the present moment. I think of the present moment like this. It's the one place where you have power, because in the present moment you can accept the past. You can look at it as the past and accept it, because it's not in the present moment anymore. And only in the present moment can you imagine a future. So this place of the present moment that I'm in right now, that we're all in right now, is a place of power, a place of creation, literally. So I can qualm all I like about my socialization, because it really did harm me. But I'm at a place right now where I have accepted it, and I can perceive different realities, better realities, and further I can see my power and my power in terms of creating those realities, those societies, that social order. I can see it now when I'm at a place of acceptance. And the place of acceptance has to do with seeing all of life as one. You know, the thing I was saying about everyone seeking belonging in this world, in this life journey. That knowing allows me to be a part of society, even though I have qualms with society. That knowing allows me to look at a painful past and a painful socialization process and know that better can exist, better can be created, and it can actually be born out of me, you know? Okay, let's do this. So I guess I felt the importance to speak to society because I firstly wanted to stop feeling like a victim to society. I wanted to step into my power as society and create a reality that I wished I had, create an experience of socialization that I wish I had. So it's basically The reason is basically to step into my power and to use my power. That's literally why I felt the need to speak to society, is because I am society. And I find power in stepping into the center of my being, in the being greater than just me, which is society. Society at large is me at large. Me individually is society individually. You can think of yourself exactly the same way, because I think that's literally what it is. Society at large is a reflection of you. You as an individual are a reflection of society at large. And I personally want to reflect things that humanize people. I want to reflect love. I want to reflect humanity. I want to reflect unity. I want to reflect peace and joy. I don't want to reflect fear. I don't want to reflect trauma. I don't want to reflect perpetuated oppression. I don't want to be to reflect separation through hierarchy, or I don't want to reflect control. I want to reflect freedom, safety, creativity, and it's good to know that I have a choice. It's good to know that all can exist. I don't have to mirror the fear that lives in society at large. I can mirror the love. I can counter the fear with love. I don't have to mirror the control that comes with hierarchy and abuse and just separation. I don't have to mirror that. I can contra that with unity, with loving, and with partnership, you know. And I guess that's literally why I felt the need to have this conversation. I think also, just lastly, the fact that voting in South Africa and a lot of other countries, funny enough, we are in a very this voting season that is coming up in the world at large is kind of big, and we're about to make big changes in the world. I'm excited, and I guess that's also why I felt the need to speak on this. I hope you guys are registered to vote and you are ready to vote for change. But I want you to be enticed with the knowing that you have power. The power is in you. If you don't see it, it doesn't live. If you don't use it, it doesn't do anything. It's just idle inside of you. And you don't want to do that. Trust me, you don't want to be sitting with powers that are idle, that you want to look away from. You don't want to do that in a world that's already dehumanizing you.